Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was why I showed you the part of the Great Learning website that I did, because we haven't used that so far. So let me just show you why I showed you where it is. So let's just open up a new tab, go to greatlearning.com, which is there. And once we've opened up the greatlearning.com, scroll down to the bottom. I don't know why they've put this login at the bottom, but they've put it at the bottom. Scroll down there and click on login. Okay, so now that I've logged in, I go to IPC and I go to assess, which is here. Rubrics and learning advice. Click on those here. And we've been looking at time travellers, which is milepost 1. So I'm going to have a look at milepost 1, and time travellers is all about history. So let's go and have a look at the history, which is there, and we can now have a look. Now, those 4 history learning goals are the ones that we have recorded on our tracker here, 1, 2, 3 and 4. What this does is it gives me my teacher's rubric, so it describes what 1.04 looks like as a teacher. The child uses words predominantly related to personal time. Words such as yesterday, tomorrow, today, before, now, after, etc. are only used when prompted by an adult. That's what an example, an exemplar of a beginning of 1.04 might look like. Now, as we've already discussed, we've got 12 different opportunities to look for these particular aspects of this learning objective. So by the time you've finished this topic, the children have had plenty of opportunity to start off here and move their way through to developing and possibly even mastering. Don't forget though, this is still over a complete milepost. So by the time they're in year 2, we should expect less beginning and more developing, because they've already had a bite at the cherry, if you like, when they're in year 1 with their history learning objective. Okay, so that's why I showed you this. And in children's speak, this is really what I give to my kids, and I say, right, do you understand what a beginning might look like? And instead of the beginning, we just use the term emerging, and then we use expected, and then we use exceeding. So we've still got the 3 levels, but we don't use beginning, developing and mastering. We use emerging, expected and exceeding. So we've got the teacher's version and the kids' version. So you can even, if you wanted to, if you weren't too sure whether your child is going from is beginning or developing or mastering, whatever, you can even have a conversation with the kid, you know, and sit down and say, well, I'm not really too sure where to place you. Let's have a conversation and see if you can use these words, for example. The other great thing about the IPC is it gives you these little pieces, these little gems of information here. So if you've got a kid who is on beginning and they want to go to developing, these are some of the strategies that you can use with that kid and say, right, if you wanted to go from beginning to developing, say the words and try using them in a sentence, for example. Then think about what you're going to do now and what you were doing before in the past, because this is what this particular learning objective is. It's to be able to use words and phrases relating to the passing of time. It's not about necessarily the topic that you are learning. Okay, it's being able to use these words and phrases. So it's about being able to look at this particular learning objective and see how you can fit it in within the environment of time travellers and your history tasks. I hope that makes sense somehow, but you've got plenty of opportunity there. Now, the last thing I want to mention to you here is this date completed thing. If you've sat down and you've had a conversation with your kid and they are looking at excuse me, they are looking at using words such as yesterday, tomorrow, today, before, now, after, blah blah blah, and they're increasing in confidence according to you, and they can use some terms accurately within a conversation when questioned, then you might choose to say, well, this child is They're no longer emerging, but they are expected. So if you have done an activity with your kids in Time Travellers, say it's History Task 1 here, this is your activity, okay, that relates to those learning objectives. And what I would do is, in my IPC tracker, I would say in History Task 1, and the date that I did that, and the date that I did that might be, I don't know, say the 20th, this is going to be September, isn't it? So the 20th of the 9th, 2018, it will still be then, okay? And there is where you've got your evidence from. And that tells you the child achieved, for example, and expected on that date. If you repeat it and you say, well, actually, they got an exceeding 3 weeks later, change the date. If you're going to revisit the whole class. But you don't have to. You only have to do it once. It's very simple. Okay? And that is the basic way to use these rubrics. If you've got any questions, please do feel free to ask.